Title: The Last Stop. The Wanderers in rain lashed against the car window with fury, a torrential downpour that seemed intent on swallowing the world. The headlights barely managed to scratch at the darkness that stretched on either side of the road, a winding path that had promised me a shortcut, but now offered only solitude and unease. I had been driving for hours, fatigue was beginning to take its toll, and visibility was practically nil. Just as I was beginning to consider pulling over to the side of the road, I saw it. A yellowish, flickering light emerging from the trees like a promise of refuge. As I got closer, the silhouette of an old building became clearer, the Wanderers Inn. It was a dark stone building, covered in ivy, with a somber and desolate appearance that, nevertheless, I found strangely welcoming. I parked in front of the inn, the sound of the engine dying in the oppressive silence of the night. As I got out of the car, a blast of icy wind hit me in the face, bringing with it an indistinct murmur, like distant whispers. Ignoring the feeling of unease that was beginning to grow inside me, I headed towards the main door. The sign above the entrance, carved in decaying wood, read, "The Wanderers Inn. A home away from home." The wood creaked under my hand as I pushed the door open, revealing an interior dimly lit by the flickering light of candles. The air was heavy with a smell of damp and dust, a stale aroma that spoke of centuries of abandonment. Behind the bar, a man with a gaunt face and piercing gaze watched me in silence. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes shone with a strange, unsettling gleam. He wore a faded leather waistcoat and a white shirt with ruffles, an attire that seemed to have come from another era. "Welcome, traveler," he said with a deep, measured voice, a voice that seemed to vibrate deep in my bones. "I was expecting your arrival." I swallowed, trying to ignore the feeling that something was off. "Good evening," I replied. "I need a room for the night. The storm is too strong to continue driving." The man smiled, a grimace that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. We have the perfect room for you. Number 7. It is a favorite with our guests." He handed me a rusty iron key and pointed me towards a spiral staircase that ascended into the gloom. Each step creaked under my weight, a ghostly echo that resonated in the silence of the inn. Room number 7 was at the end of a long, narrow corridor, lit by a single candle flickering on a ledge. The room was small and austere, with a rough wooden bed, a table, and a chair. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper with a floral design that seemed to be watching me. A window overlooked a dark and silent interior courtyard. I closed the door behind me and left the key on the table. I needed a hot shower and a good night's sleep. But as I undressed, a feeling of discomfort washed over me. I felt like I was being watched, that there was someone else in the room with me. I looked around, but saw nothing. Maybe it was just the tiredness, I told myself. But the feeling persisted, intensifying as time passed. After a quick shower, I got into bed. The sheets smelled of bleach and damp. I tried to relax, but I couldn't. The silence was absolute, interrupted only by the constant drumming of the rain against the window. Suddenly, I heard a noise. A soft whisper, almost inaudible, that seemed to come from the wall. I froze, listening intently. The whisper grew louder, becoming a female voice, plaintive. "Help me," the voice said. "Please, help me." Panic washed over me. I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. The room was empty. The voice had disappeared. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I must be imagining it. It was the tiredness, the stress of the journey. But deep down I knew it wasn't. Something strange was happening in that inn. I dressed quickly and left the room. I needed to talk to the man at the bar. I needed answers. But when I got to the reception, I didn't find anyone. The bar was empty, the candles flickered faintly, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. I called to the man, but only silence answered. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I was alone, trapped in that cursed inn. I decided to explore the place. Maybe I would find the man, or at least some explanation for what was happening. I walked through the dark and silent corridors, each step echoing in the sepulchral silence. In one of the rooms, I found an old diary. The pages were yellowed and fragile, written in an elegant and precise script. I began to read, and as I did, horror gripped me. The diary belonged to a young woman named Eliza, who had been a guest at the inn more than a century ago. In its pages, she described the same feeling of unease and fear that I was feeling. She spoke of whispering voices, of shadows that moved in the darkness, of an invisible presence that constantly watched her. Eliza had discovered that the inn was built on an ancient cemetery, and that the spirits of the dead haunted the place. The man at the bar, she said, was one of those spirits, condemned to wander the inn forever. The last entry in the diary was chilling. Eliza wrote that the spirits were closing in on her, that they wanted her to join them in their eternal suffering. The entry ended abruptly, with a single sentence written with desperation: "They're coming for me." I closed the diary with a tremor in my hands. Now I understood. I was in danger. The inn was a trap, and I was the prey. I tried to escape, but the main door was locked. The windows were boarded up. I was trapped. Suddenly, I heard a sound behind me. I turned around and saw the man from the bar, standing in the doorway. His face was distorted by an expression of hatred and revenge. "You cannot escape," he said in a guttural voice. "This inn is your home now. You will stay here forever." I tried to run, but the man was too fast. He grabbed my arm with superhuman strength and dragged me into the darkness. I fought with all my strength, but it was useless. The man was stronger, more determined. He dragged me to the inner courtyard, where a group of shadowy figures awaited me. They were the spirits of the dead, their faces disfigured by suffering and despair. They stretched their hands towards me, eager to join me in their torment. I screamed, but my voice was drowned out in the silence of the night. The spirits surrounded me, and as they dragged me into the darkness, I heard a voice whisper in my ear, "You are home."